Hey guys, Steve Harris here with MuseThemes.com. We have a new widget ready to go for you. It is the custom PayPal buttons widget. So we've been seeing a lot of users submit websites that have PayPal integration for e-commerce. However, they're using the default PayPal Buy Now button, which is this kind of yellow gradient thing that just doesn't fit with any design. Muse does also have a PayPal button widget built into it. However, it's really limited. You can't use text on it. You can only, if you want to customize it, you can only upload an image, and that image can't have hover states. It has no animation. So it's really kind of basic. So we wanted to kind of introduce this, a really simple way for you to create a stylish PayPal button that better matches your site and your brand. So as you can see here on this demo page we built, we have our sample product, which is the shoe. And we have an order now button. And if we mouse over the button, you can see that that kind of animated sliding tab pulls out from the side, and it says it's US dollars $129.95. Now, if we click on the button, of course, we'll see what happens here. It's going to direct us to the PayPal website. And depending on the PayPal email that you've put into pay to, you can see here we have our email at the top, and we have the product details along with the price, and somebody can just go ahead and check out from there. So it's that simple to use. We're also investigating some other PayPal widgets. They do have some other deeper e-commerce integration that we're going to look at releasing in a later version. So let's go ahead and jump into Muse, and I'll show you how this works. This is actually a really simple widget to set up and use. So I'm just going to go on to a blank page here, and let's click on the widget and drag it out onto the page. Okay. Now let's look at the panel options. It's not a huge panel, but we do have a fair bit of control on it. So at first we have the button settings. So we have button type. That's a drop down. We have default or custom. You've seen this on other widgets of ours before. The default button is a couple of preset styles that we've set up for you. The custom button means that you can use a graphic style on a state button to use anything you want. So for the default buttons, then we have a couple of different styles of default button. We have a simple one that just kind of looks like this. We have a round one, which actually has more of a transparent background here, and you can see actually the text in front of it is white, and I could just change the text like that, and you can see what that looks like. Or we have an animated version, and the animated version is what you saw on the demo site that I showed you, where that sliding tab comes out. So that's the default button styles, but if you want to do something a little bit more creative or a little more custom, we could set the button type to custom like that. Then notice all these controls down here get grayed out, and we have to enter a button style name. So what we do there is we go to our widgets library, we click on buttons, and we drag a state button out onto the page. Now, of course, you can style the state button up however you want and add rollover states and that sort of thing. And we'll just create a graphic style for that button. I'm just going to create a new one, and let's call it PayPal. Click OK, and now we go back into our widget here and we set that up as the custom button there. So now when we preview this page in the browser, the state button we've created acts as our PayPal checkout button. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit some more settings here. I'm going to delete the state button for now. We'll go back to the default button. Okay, so now that I have the default button set up here, I just need to go ahead and style it. So I won't go through all the styling controls here. They're very straightforward, but basically we have the background and hover colors. We have the corner radius, which is of course going to change the kind of rounding on those corners. Let's go down to something like 10 for that. Now we can change the button text, so we could say something like purchase. We can change the font, of course, on this, the font size. Now we have font color and font hover color. So I'll just leave those set as is for now. So the next block here is probably the most important for you to set up properly. It's the PayPal settings. And this is where you need to enter in your seller ID and your product info. When I clicked on the button on the last demo that I just published up there, you could see that it said that there was an error with this product. That's because we didn't have a PayPal ID entered in. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So first you want to set up or enter your seller payment ID. So let's go with Steve at visualarms.com. Now we have the product name, so let's go with running shoes. The product price, so let's set it at $69.99 perhaps. The currency code, so we'll leave this at US dollar, but as you can see when you bring up the list, we have tons of options in there. Now we have the PayPal mode, so live mode or test mode. So test mode just allows you to actually run transactions. It's called kind of a sandbox account where you can play around with it. Live mode means transactions will actually be processed. So you want to be using live mode on your site or on your e-commerce site. Now the last option we have is return to URL. So we have a couple of options. We can set a URL that users are sent to after they've made a payment. And we can set a URL that users are sent to if they cancel the payment. So by default, we just have the Muse microsite set up in there, but you could set, for example, the return to URL after payment as something like a welcome page if you're doing a membership site or you're selling a kind of a service. Or a return to URL after cancel, you could have the page kind of asking why a user didn't complete the purchase, and you could optimize your e-commerce site from there. So now that I've set that up, let's go ahead and preview it in the browser. You can see the buttons there. As we mouse over, it kind of flies up from the side. It's the animated default button style. And if we click on the button, it's going to redirect us to PayPal to complete the checkout. And this is our seller ID up there. And we have, of course, the product type and the product price in there as well. So that's the custom PayPal buttons widget. We hope you like it. It was actually highly requested because those generic PayPal buttons just don't work in any site design. Thanks again, and best of luck with this widget. Cheers.